Oh, wonderful. Just absolutely fantastic. Here I was, Crix-9, Senior Intelligence Analyst for the Galactic Confederation, sitting in my perfectly climate-controlled office aboard Station Nexus Prime and sipping my morning stimulant brew, when the emergency alert klaxons decided to shatter my peaceful existence. Because apparently the universe has a twisted sense of humor. Critical alert. Unknown vessel detected at Sector 77 Alpha. All senior staff report immediately. I nearly spilled my drink all over my datapad. Unknown vessel? In our space? The audacity. Don't these primitive species know we have rules about unauthorized entry into Confederation territory? There are protocols, procedures, paperwork, for crying out loud. I shuffled my way to the command center, my forearms juggling my beverage and various data tablets. The scene that greeted me was nothing short of pandemonium. Officers from 12 different species were scrambling around like startled hive creatures, their various appendages flailing in what I could only describe as controlled panic. Crix-9. Commander Vex Thorol's voice boomed across the chamber. The massive Garanian scales were shifting from their usual blue-green to a rather alarming shade of amber. We need your expertise on this anomaly. I approached the main display screen, where a fuzzy image of what appeared to be a metallic construct was slowly rotating. Well, I muttered, adjusting my optical enhancers. What have we here? The vessel, if you could call it that, looked like someone had taken a bunch of scrap metal and somehow convinced it to fly. It was roughly cylindrical, covered in what appeared to be patches and welds, with various protrusions that defied all known principles of aerodynamic design. Honestly, it looked like it had been assembled by a particularly creative child with access to a junkyard. "Sir," squeaked Pip-12, our youngest communications officer, "we've been trying to establish contact for the past 3 cycles. They're not responding to any of our standard greeting protocols." "Have you tried the universal peace frequency?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. "Yes, sir." No response. "The mathematical sequence?" "Tried it. Nothing." "What about the musical harmony pattern?" Pip-12's antennae drooped slightly. "We even attempted the ancient Zephyrian lullaby. Still nothing." I leaned back in my chair, all 4 arms crossed. This was getting interesting. In my 47 years of service, I'd encountered thousands of species, from the highly advanced ethereal collective to the barely sentient mud dwellers of Graxon 4. But I'd never seen a vessel quite like this one. "Any energy signatures?" I inquired. "That's the strange part," interjected Dr. Vel Cameron, our chief science officer. Her tentacles were twitching with excitement. "The energy readings are off the charts, but they're using technologies we don't recognize. The power source seems to be some kind of controlled fusion reaction, but the containment method is completely alien to us." "Controlled fusion?" I raised an eyebrow. "Most species didn't develop that technology until they reached at least Class 7 civilization status. Yet this ramshackle vessel was somehow managing it." "What about the materials?" I asked. "Even stranger," Dr. Vel Cameron continued. "The hull appears to be composed of various metal alloys, some of which shouldn't even be able to exist in the same structure. It's like they took whatever they could find and somehow made it work." Commander Vex Thorol's scales had now shifted to a deep purple, indicating extreme concern. "Crix-9, I need you to consult the database. Find out what species this could be." I sighed dramatically. Of course it would fall to me to solve this mystery. I activated my personal workstation and began cross-referencing the vessel's characteristics with our extensive database of known civilizations. Hull composition, energy signatures, construction methods, technological markers, nothing. Absolutely nothing matched. "Sir," Pip-12's voice cracked with nervousness, "the vessel is changing course. It's heading directly for us." The main display updated, showing the unknown craft's trajectory. Indeed, it was moving toward Station Nexus Prime with what could only be described as deliberate intent. Not exactly the behavior of a lost tourist. "Weapons status?" Commander Vex Thorol barked. "Defensive shields at full power," replied Lieutenant Kor Mendax, Our security chief. But sir, if they have technology we don't understand. I know. The commander's voice carried that particular tone of someone who really didn't want to be making these decisions. Crix 9? Anything yet? I was scrolling through classification after classification, searching for any match. Nothing in the main database. Let me check the restricted files. The restricted files contained information on species that the Confederation had deemed too dangerous for general knowledge. The void wraiths, who could phase through solid matter. Not the plasma eaters, who consumed energy itself. The time weavers, who could manipulate causality. Surely this mysterious vessel belonged to one of these nightmare species. But no, still nothing. Commander, I said slowly, I'm going to need to access the Forbidden Archives. A hush fell over the command center. The Forbidden Archives contained data on species so dangerous, so fundamentally wrong, that even knowing about them was considered a security risk. But species that had been erased from existence, entities that existed outside normal spacetime, civilizations that had ascended beyond physical reality only to return as something else entirely. Are you certain? Commander Vex Thorel asked, unless you have a better idea. He gestured for me to proceed, and I input my highest level security codes. The archive interface materialized before me, its warning messages flashing in urgent red text. I began my search, filtering through classifications that made my scales itch just reading them. And then I found it. A single entry, buried deep in the most restricted section of the archives. The file was labeled with a designation I'd never seen before: Species Classification, Deathworld Origin, Extreme Caution Required. My blood ran cold. Deathworld species were theoretical nightmares. The world so hostile, so utterly lethal, that nothing should be able to evolve on them. The gravity would crush most life forms, the atmosphere would be toxic, the weather patterns would be catastrophic, and the native life would be so aggressively competitive that survival would be nearly impossible. But here was a file suggesting that such a species not only existed but had somehow achieved spaceflight. Commander, I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. I think I found something. The entire command center turned to look at me. I opened the file, and the information that appeared made my worst fears seem like pleasant daydreams. The species was called humans, and they originated from a planet designated as Earth in their native language. The planetary classification was beyond anything I'd ever seen. Gravity 1.2 times Confederation standard. Atmospheric composition that would be toxic to most known life forms. Weather patterns that included massive electrical storms, rotating air columns capable of destroying cities, and frozen water precipitation that could bury entire landscapes. But that wasn't even the worst part. The file described the evolution of these humans in terms that made my breathing apparatus work overtime. They had evolved from predators. Not just any predators, but persistence hunters who would chase their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They had redundant organ systems, the ability to consume a wide variety of organic matter, and a healing factor that allowed them to recover from injuries that would be fatal to most species. Oh, by the 7 moons of Proxima, I muttered, scrolling through more data. They're omnivores. Where? Omnivores. What's an omnivore? Asked Pip 12. They eat everything, I explained, my voice getting higher with each word. Plants, animals, other organisms. They're not specialized for any particular food source. They can consume almost anything organic and extract nutrition from it. Dr. Vel Cameron's tentacles stopped twitching. That's not possible. Species specialize. It's basic evolutionary biology. Tell that to the humans, I said grimly, continuing to read. Oh, and get this. They have what's called an immune system that can adapt to fight off diseases and toxins. They can literally evolve immunity to poisons while they're being poisoned. And Commander Vex Thorel's scales had gone completely transparent, which I'd never seen before. Crix 9, please tell me you're joking. I wish I was. But it gets worse. I scrolled to the next section. They're pack hunters with complex social structures. They can coordinate attacks across vast distances using primitive communication systems. And they have something called adrenaline that can temporarily increase their physical capabilities beyond normal limits. The silence in the command center was deafening. Everyone was staring at me as if I'd just announced the end of the universe. Sir, Pip-12's voice was barely audible. The vessel is now within communication range. And it's hailing us. Commander Vex Thorol looked like he was about to molt from stress. Put it through. The main display flickered, and suddenly we were looking at the interior of the alien vessel. And there, sitting in what appeared to be a chair made of metal and some kind of organic padding, was a human. It was smaller than I'd expected, maybe 2 meters tall, with pale skin and hair the color of Earth's star. It was wearing what looked like a form-fitting suit made of synthetic materials, and it was. It was smiling. "Greetings," the human said, and its voice was somehow both melodious and terrifying. "This is Captain Maya Torres of the Earth vessel Persistence. We come in peace." Peace. Right. This creature, this apex predator from a world of nightmares, was claiming to come in peace. I almost laughed, but the sound died in my throat when I noticed something else. Beneath the human's eyes, they were forward-facing, which meant it was definitely a predator. But more than that, they seemed to be looking directly at each of us individually, as if it was cataloging potential threats and weaknesses. "Welcome to Confederation space," Commander Vex Thorol managed to say, though his voice cracked slightly. "I am Commander Vex Thorol of Station Nexus Prime. We weren't expecting visitors from your region." Captain Torres's smile widened, showing what appeared to be pointed teeth. "Oh, we're not from around here. We're explorers. We've been traveling for quite some time, looking for intelligent life." Explorers. Of course they were explorers. This species had somehow achieved faster than light travel and was now spreading across the galaxy. The implications were staggering. "If you don't mind me asking," I found myself saying, "how did you locate our station?" The human's gaze shifted to me, and I felt like a small creature being examined by a much larger predator. "We followed the energy signatures. Your station puts out quite a bit of electromagnetic radiation. We've been tracking it for several cycles." Several cycles. This creature had been hunting us for several cycles, and we hadn't even known it existed. "Captain Torres," Commander Vex Thorol said, "would you be willing to come aboard our station? We have protocols for first contact situations." "I'd be delighted," the human replied, and that smile never wavered. "I'll bring a small diplomatic team, just myself and 2 others. There's 3 of them. 3 apex predators from a death world were about to board our station." I quickly accessed the internal communication system and sent a priority message to all department heads. "Prepare for extreme biological hazard. Lock down all sensitive areas. Activate emergency protocols." "Excellent," Commander Vex Thorol said, apparently choosing to ignore the fact that we were about to host the most dangerous beings in the known galaxy. "Docking Bay 7 is prepared for your arrival." "See you soon," Captain Torres said, and the transmission ended. I stared at the blank screen, my mind racing. 3 humans. 3 Deathworld predators. On our station. What could possibly go wrong? "Crix 9, Commander Vex Thorol called. I want you to head the first contact team. You're the expert on xenobiology." "Expert on xenobiology." Right. I was an expert on normal species. Species that made sense. Species that didn't evolve on worlds that would kill most life forms just by existing. "Sir," I said, "I strongly recommend we evacuate all non-essential personnel from the station." "Evacuate? Why?" I gestured at the screen where the human had been. "Because we're about to welcome aboard 3 representatives of a species that evolution specifically designed to be perfect killers. They come from a world where everything is trying to kill everything else, and they not only survived but thrived." Dr. Vel Cameron's tentacles had started twitching again, but this time with what I recognized as fear. "Crix 9 is right. The physiological data alone suggests these beings are capable of feats that would be impossible for any known species." "But they said they come in peace," Pip-12 pointed out. "Their definition of peace and ours might be very different," I replied. When you're an apex predator, peace might just mean you're not actively hunting at the moment. Commander Vex Thorol's scales were now cycling through colors I didn't even have names for. We're committed now. We've extended an invitation, and rescinding it would be seen as hostile. Hostile. Yes, let's definitely not be hostile to the spacefaring Deathworld predators. Fine, I said, checking my emergency evacuation routes. But I'm implementing Code Omega protocols. Code Omega was reserved for situations where the survival of the station was in immediate jeopardy. It would lock down all critical systems, activate automated defense measures, and prepare for emergency evacuation. Crix 9, Commander Vex Thorol said, "Don't you think that's a bit extreme?" I looked at him, then at the file still open on my screen, then back at him. Sir, these beings evolved on a planet where the weather alone would kill most of us. They're persistence hunters with redundant organ systems, toxic atmosphere tolerance, and the ability to coordinate complex attacks across vast distances. They pilot vessels that use technologies we don't understand, and they've been tracking our station for cycles without us knowing. But I paused for effect. No, I don't think Code Omega is extreme. I think it's barely adequate. The docking bay alert chimed. Attention all personnel. Incoming vessel requesting docking clearance. Here we go. 3 humans, 3 apex predators from the nightmare world of Earth, were about to set foot on our station. I said a quick prayer to whatever deities might be listening and hoped we'd all still be alive in an hour. What could possibly go wrong? Everything, apparently. Absolutely everything. 20 minutes later, I stood in Docking Bay 7, wearing full environmental protection gear and clutching a neural disruptor that I sincerely hoped I wouldn't need to use. The diplomatic team assembled around me looked like they were preparing for a war rather than a first contact situation. Lieutenant Kor Mendax had positioned security personnel at every entrance, their weapons powered but hopefully not obviously so. Dr. Vel Kamaran was scanning the air with every instrument she could carry, checking for biological contaminants. And poor Pip-12 looked like he might faint at any moment. Incoming vessel confirmed for docking, announced the bay's automated system. Atmospheric equalization in progress. I watched through the reinforced viewing port as the human vessel approached. Up close, it looked even more impossible than before. The hull was definitely patched in multiple places, and I could see what appeared to be writing in various scripts along the sides. How many different languages did these creatures use? Docking clamps engaged. Atmospheric pressure equalized. Auditing tube extending. This was it. The moment of truth. I activated my recording device and prepared to document either the most significant first contact in galactic history or the last moments of Station Nexus Prime. The airlock cycled open with a soft hiss, and Captain Maya Torres stepped through. The first thing that struck me was how gracefully she moved. Despite supposedly coming from a high-gravity world, she seemed to glide rather than walk. Her movements were fluid, economical, and somehow predatory. Behind her came 2 other humans, one with darker skin and short black hair, the other with reddish hair and numerous small metal ornaments piercing his facial features. Commander Vex Thorol, Captain Torres said, approaching with that same unsettling smile. Thank you for welcoming us aboard. The pleasure is ours, the commander replied, though his scales were still cycling through stress colors. Allow me to introduce my senior staff. This is Crix 9, our intelligence analyst and xenobiology expert. Captain Torres turned those forward-facing predator eyes on me, and I felt my survival instincts screaming at me to run. Crix 9. Interesting name. I'm Captain Maya Torres, and these are my colleagues, Dr. James Walker and Engineer Rosa Martinez. Dr. Walker stepped forward, and I noticed he was carrying what appeared to be a small device in his hands. We brought a translation matrix, he said, his voice deeper than the captain's. It should help with any communication difficulties. And a translation matrix. Of course they had one. These beings had somehow developed technology that could instantly translate between languages they'd never encountered before. That's very thoughtful, I managed to say, though my voice came out as more of a squeak. Engineer Martinez, the one with the facial ornaments, was looking around the docking bay with obvious curiosity. "Nice setup you have here," she said. "The artificial gravity generation is impressive. What kind of field generators are you using?" "Standard graviton manipulators," Dr. Velkamaran replied automatically, then seemed to realize she was giving technical information to potential enemies. "Nothing too advanced." "Graviton manipulation," Engineer Martinez nodded appreciatively. "We're still working on that. We use rotational force for most of our gravity needs." Rotational force. They were using primitive mechanical rotation to simulate gravity, yet they had somehow achieved faster than light travel. The contradictions were staggering. "Would you like a tour of the station?" Commander Vex Thorel offered. "We'd love one," Captain Torres replied. "But first, I hope you don't mind if I ask about your atmospheric composition. We want to make sure we're not inadvertently causing any problems." "Problems? Right. Like the fact that you're apex predators from a nightmare world." "Our atmosphere is primarily nitrogen and oxygen with trace amounts of argon and carbon dioxide," Dr. Velkamaran said. "Perfect," Dr. Walker said, consulting his device. "That's very similar to our home atmosphere. We should be fine." Similar to their home atmosphere, which meant they were breathing the same air we were, without any protective equipment. The implications were terrifying. "Shall we begin the tour?" Commander Vex Thorel asked. As we walked through the station corridors, I couldn't help but notice how the humans moved. They were constantly alert, their eyes scanning every doorway, every intersection, every possible threat. Yet they maintained a casual conversation as if they were tourists. "Your architecture is fascinating," Captain Torres commented as we passed through the central hub. "The use of curved surfaces and organic flow patterns. It's very aesthetically pleasing." "Thank you," Commander Vex Thorel replied. "We believe that living spaces should promote psychological well-being." "That's a wonderful philosophy," Dr. Walker said. "Our ships tend to be more utilitarian." I had seen their ship. Utilitarian was a generous description. "How long have you been traveling?" I asked, unable to contain my curiosity. "This particular mission? About 6 months," Engineer Martinez replied. "But humanity has been exploring space for about 2 centuries now." 2 centuries. They had achieved spaceflight 2 centuries ago, and were already exploring beyond their home system. Most species took millennia to develop interstellar capability. "That's remarkably fast development," Dr. Velkamaran observed. Captain Torres's smile took on a slightly different quality. "We're a very adaptable species. We tend to learn quickly when we need to. When they need to. Like when they're being hunted by other predators on their death world." We continued the tour, visiting the hydroponics bays, the energy generation facilities, and the recreational areas. The humans asked intelligent questions about everything, displaying a level of curiosity that was both impressive and slightly unnerving. "This is our main recreational facility," Commander Vex Thorel said as we entered a large chamber filled with various games and entertainment devices. "Oh, games," Engineer Martinez exclaimed, approaching a holographic puzzle display. "We love games." "May I?" "Of course," the commander replied. What happened next defied all logic. Engineer Martinez interacted with the holographic interface for perhaps 30 seconds, manipulating complex 3-dimensional patterns with casual ease. Then she solved the puzzle. The puzzle that had been designed to challenge the combined intellectual capabilities of 12 different species. She solved it in 30 seconds. "That was fun," she said, turning back to us with a grin. "Do you have any others?" Dr. Velkamaran's tentacles were practically vibrating with shock. "How did you do that?" "Pattern recognition," Engineer Martinez replied with a shrug. "Once you figure out the underlying logic, it's just a matter of applying it systematically." She had analyzed a complex multidimensional problem designed by multiple species and solved it as if it were a children's toy. "We should probably continue the tour," I said quickly, before she could demonstrate any more terrifying capabilities. Our next stop was the command center, where the skeleton crew was monitoring station operations. The humans took in the various displays and control stations with obvious interest. "You have quite an operation here," Captain Torres observed. "How many people does it take to run the station?" "There are about 8,000 personnel across 3 shifts, Commander Vex Thorol replied. 8,000, Dr. Walker repeated. "That's impressive. Our ship operates with a crew of 12. 12. They were operating a faster-than-light vessel with advanced technology using only 12 people. The efficiency was staggering." Captain Pip-12 said suddenly, "If you don't mind me asking, how did you achieve faster-than-light travel?" The 3 humans exchanged glances, and I caught what might have been amusement in their expressions. "We call it the Alcubierre drive," Captain Torres explained. "It's based on manipulating space-time itself rather than trying to exceed light speed." Space-time manipulation. They were casually discussing technology that the Confederation's top scientists considered theoretical impossibility. "That's fascinating," Dr. Vel Kamaran said. "We use quantum tunnel generators." "Well, quantum tunneling," Engineer Martinez nodded. "Yes, we experimented with that approach, but we found the energy requirements were too high for practical application." Too high for practical application. They had rejected technology that formed the backbone of galactic civilization because it wasn't efficient enough. "Would you like to see our ship?" Dr. Walker asked suddenly. The question caught everyone off guard. See their ship? Get closer to their advanced technology and whatever other surprises they might have? "That would be very educational," Commander Vex Thorol said, apparently deciding that curiosity outweighed caution. 20 minutes later we were aboard the human vessel, and I was having to completely revise my understanding of the universe. The ship's interior was nothing like what I had expected. Instead of the primitive, cobbled-together construction I had imagined, I found myself in a space that was clean, efficient, and surprisingly comfortable. The walls were lined with what appeared to be growing plants, and the air smelled of something pleasant and organic. "Welcome to the Persistence," Captain Torres said proudly. "She's not much to look at from the outside, but she's home." "The plants," Dr. Vel Kamaran said, reaching toward a wall-mounted growing system. "They're part of your life support system?" "Exactly," Dr. Walker replied. "They process our waste products and provide fresh oxygen. Plus they're good for morale. Living systems integrated into their technology. They had created a symbiotic relationship between their artificial environment and natural organisms." "This is the navigation center," Engineer Martinez said, leading us to a section filled with displays and controls. "We use a combination of stellar cartography and quantum sensors for positioning." The displays showed star charts that covered vast distances, with navigation routes plotted across multiple galactic sectors. These beings weren't just exploring their local region. They were mapping the entire galaxy. "How far from home are you?" I asked. "About 20,000 light years," Captain Torres replied casually. 20,000 light years. They had traveled 20,000 light years from their home world. Most species barely ventured beyond their own solar systems. "That's quite a distance," Commander Vex Thorol said, his scales now showing what I recognized as awe. "It's a big galaxy," Dr. Walker said with a smile. "We want to see as much of it as possible, and meet as many interesting people as possible," Engineer Martinez added. We continued the tour, seeing their medical bay, their engineering sections, and their living quarters. Everything was designed with a level of practicality and efficiency that was impressive. But more than that, it was designed by people who clearly expected to spend long periods in space, far from any support or assistance. "This is our fabrication unit," Engineer Martinez said, showing us a machine that looked like it could build almost anything. "We can manufacture most of the parts and supplies we need." "What do you do for raw materials?" Dr. Vel Kamaran asked. "Asteroid mining, mostly," Captain Torres replied. "There's usually enough material in any system to keep us supplied." Asteroid mining. They were strip mining solar systems for resources as they traveled. Now the implications for galactic resource management were staggering. "Captain," I said, finally working up the courage to ask the question that had been bothering me. "Why are you here? What is humanity's goal in space?" The three humans looked at each other again, and I saw something pass between them that I couldn't quite interpret. "We're explorers," Captain Torres said simply. "We want to know what's out there. We want to meet other intelligent species. We want to learn. And we want to help," Dr. Walker added. "If we can. Help." The apex predators from the Deathworld wanted to help. "Help with what?" Commander Vex Thorol asked. "Whatever needs helping with," Engineer Martinez replied. "We've found that every species faces challenges. Maybe we can offer different perspectives. From beings who had evolved on a planet where survival required constant adaptation and innovation." "That's very generous," I said, though I wasn't entirely sure I believed it. "It's practical," Captain Torres replied. "The more we help others, the more we learn. The more we learn, the better prepared we are for whatever challenges we might face. Whatever challenges they might face. As if there was something out there that could threaten beings who had evolved on a world that actively tried to kill them." "Are there other ships like yours?" Commander Vex Thorol asked. "Oh yes," Dr. Walker said. "Hundreds of them. The Persistence is part of the human exploration fleet. We're spread across this entire galactic arm. Hundreds of ships. Hundreds of human vessels exploring the galaxy, each one filled with apex predators from a death world. The scope of it was mind-boggling." "What happens when you encounter hostile species?" I asked. The three humans exchanged another look, and this time I definitely saw something that made my survival instincts twitch. "We hope we don't," Captain Torres said quietly. "But if we do, we're prepared." Prepared. Right. These beings who had evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill them were prepared for hostility. "We should probably head back to the station," Commander Vex Thorol said, apparently sensing that the conversation was moving into dangerous territory. As we made our way back through the docking tube, I found myself walking beside Engineer Martinez. She seemed the most approachable of the three, so I took a chance. "Can I ask you something?" I said quietly. "And of course. Estikiones a Monau, your world, Earth. Is it really as dangerous as our databases suggest?" She was quiet for a moment, then smiled. "Probably more dangerous than your databases suggest. But it's also beautiful. And it made us who we are." "Aren't you afraid? Being so far from home?" "Fear is useful," she replied. "It keeps you alert. But we didn't get to the stars by being afraid. Back in the station, we gathered in the main conference room for what was diplomatically termed a cultural exchange session. In reality, it was an opportunity for both sides to ask questions and try to understand each other. "So," Captain Torres began, "tell us about the Galactic Confederation. How does it work?" Commander Vex Thorol launched into an explanation of galactic governance, trade regulations, and peaceful coexistence protocols. The humans listened with apparent interest, asking intelligent questions about resource allocation and conflict resolution. "It sounds like a remarkable achievement," Dr. Walker said when the explanation was finished. "Thousands of species working together peacefully." "It is," Commander Vex Thorol replied proudly. "It's taken millennia to build." "How do you handle disputes?" Engineer Martinez asked. "We have courts, arbitration systems, and diplomatic protocols," I explained. "Violence is extremely rare." "That's wonderful," Captain Torres said. "On Earth, we had to learn cooperation the hard way. Probably involving the deaths of millions of their kind." "What about you?" Commander Vex Thorol asked. "What is humanity's government like?" "We have a united Earth government," Dr. Walker explained. "It took us a while to get there. We had to go through several wars first." "Several wars. Of course they had. But now we're united," Captain Torres added. "We have to be, if we're going to survive out here. Survive out here. In space, where most species considered the environment to be relatively benign compared to planetary surfaces." The conversation continued for another hour, covering topics ranging from art and music to technology and philosophy. The humans were intelligent, curious, and surprisingly thoughtful. They were also, I was beginning to realize, probably the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. Well, Captain Torres said finally, we should probably be moving on. We have a schedule to keep. Of course, Commander Vex Thorl replied. Thank you for visiting us. This has been truly educational. For us as well, Dr. Walker said. We hope we'll meet again. I'm sure we will, Engineer Martinez added. The galaxy is smaller than it seems. As we escorted the humans back to their ship, I found myself feeling oddly conflicted. These beings were everything our databases said they should be. They were apex predators from a death world, technologically advanced and utterly adapted for survival in hostile environments. But they were also polite, curious, and genuinely seemed to want to help. They had shared their technology freely, answered our questions honestly, and shown us nothing but respect. Captain Torres, I said as we reached the docking bay, thank you for being so open with us. Thank you for welcoming us, she replied. First contact situations can be delicate. Delicate, right, because if they had wanted to, they could have probably taken over the entire station. Safe travels, Commander Vex Thorl said. You too, Captain Torres replied. And remember, if you ever need help, just send a signal. Humanity is always ready to assist our friends. The Deathworld predators considered you as friends. As the human ship departed, I stood in the observation deck and watched it disappear into the vast darkness of space. Around me, the other members of the first contact team were discussing the encounter, analyzing every detail, trying to understand what had just happened. So, Dr. Vel Cameron said, what do you think? I considered the question carefully. What did I think? I thought we had just encountered the most dangerous species in the galaxy. I thought they were probably capable of feats that would seem impossible to any other known life form. I thought they were apex predators who had somehow achieved interstellar travel and were now spreading across the galaxy. And I thought they were probably the best friends the Galactic Confederation could ever hope to have. I think, I said finally, that the galaxy just got a lot more interesting. Interesting, Commander Vex Thorl repeated. That's one way to put it. Sir, Pip-12 said suddenly, I'm receiving a transmission from the human ship. Put it through. The communication display activated, showing Captain Torres's face. She was still smiling. Station Nexus Prime, this is Captain Torres. We wanted to thank you one more time for your hospitality. And we wanted to let you know that we've forwarded your location to the rest of the human exploration fleet. You should expect more visitors in the coming months, our visitors. More Deathworld predators coming to visit our peaceful station. We look forward to it, Commander Vex Thorl replied, though his scales were already starting to shift colors again. Excellent. Oh, and Crix 9? Yes, Captain. You might want to update your database. We're not as scary as we look. The transmission ended, leaving us staring at the blank screen. Not as scary as they looked, right? Tell that to the species who had evolved on a world where the weather alone could kill most galactic life forms. But as I thought about it, I realized something. Maybe Captain Torres was right. Maybe they weren't as scary as they looked. Maybe they were scarier. Maybe that was exactly what the galaxy needed. After all, if the universe was vast and unknown, filled with dangers we couldn't even imagine, wouldn't it be better to have the Deathworld predators on our side? I looked out at the stars, wondering what other surprises humanity had in store for us. Something told me we were about to find out.